All right, Shalom. This is the brother Nahoya from the GMS Orlando camp. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakal Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasher Allah, and a sincere salutation to all you Akim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwath, who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity. All right, I want to go into a lesson really quick on the 46th through 49th verse of 2nd Esdras, the 15th chapter. All right, I want to use a video and an article, that shows you through the Spirit how the scriptures are faithful and true. All right, so let me read these 4 verses, and then we'll go over the topic, the examples. Lord willing, this is edifying. 2nd Esdras 15 and 46 reads, "And thou, Asia, that art partaker of the hope of Babylon, and art the glory of her person. Woe be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughters in whoredom, that they might please and glory in thy lovers, which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee. Thou hast followed her that is hated in all her works and inventions. Wherefore saith Yahweh Ba'ashem Shai, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. And the glory of thy power shall be dried up as a flower. The heat shall arise that is sent over thee." Now, I want to go into this through the Spirit because this is describing Asia, which you can include China most notably in that equation, and how they have made themselves like unto Babylon. Now, you can see that in many ways, all right, just at face value, the fact that Xi Jinping, all right, wears suits, all right. He doesn't wear the traditional garb, all right, of the Moabites, all right. He wears suits, all right. You can see his haircut is Western, all right. You can see his suits are Western, all right. And this is one of many examples of how the daughter of Asia has decked herself and followed Babylon into her whoredoms. All right. Now, for edification's sake, even though this is a picture of Putin and Xi Jinping, all right, Babylon is a representation of America. All right, the West, beginning with America. All right, so that Western influence. All right, and what you see at face value, the haircut, the uniform, the attire, all right, is a representation of Western culture, if you will. All right, now another thing, one of the other inventions that China has used as a policy, all right, has been described as economic hitmen have described it. John, I believe his name is John Perkins, in particular, John Perkins, who is the writer and the author of the book Economic Hitmen. All right, he describes this debt trap policy. All right. Now, I want to go into a video that shows and explains this. And I'll jump around this video. But I want to touch the precept first and foremost, because, again, it's obvious to see how China has followed the West in its ways, in its culture. All right. But one of these policies that they've been using as of late, all right, is the debt trap policy, all right, explained in the book Economic Hitman by John Perkins, where they basically give loans to nations, all right, and if those loans can't be paid back by those third world countries or those less developed countries, LDCs, what they will do is they will basically extract the resources, all right, or they'll claim a piece of that land until the debt has been cleared. All right, so let me just go into this video, and I'm going to jump around a little bit, but let's go to the beginning. Now, this shows you again, all right, it says there are 2 ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by the sword and the other is by debt. Now, I want to stop it here because, again, John Adams is one of the presidents of the U.S. All right. And this highlights how Asia, all right, has followed her, who is hated in all her works. All right. They've studied the system of Babylon, which is the West, and they've adopted certain inventions and policies to their arsenal. All right. Because, again, Moab, which is the Chinese, right now they are in alliance with Russia, all right, which is Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. All right, and we understand that in Ezekiel 38, all right, there will be a separation with the allies of Russia against the allies of the U.S. in the West. Okay, now Moab, or the Chinese, Asia, all right, as it's mentioned in 2nd Esdras, the 15th chapter, all right, although it's not mentioned specifically in Ezekiel 38, they are also an ally to Russia, all right? But it's very spiritual, all right, that the Lord brought this out, that they would follow the West in all of her works and her inventions, all right? So let's continue.
Sri Lanka, 2009. The president of Sri Lanka at the time started pushing to build a new port in a small town at the south end of Sri Lanka. Why? Because ambitious projects like this that promise prosperity make you look like a good, caring politician. The only problem was that everyone, including their own government studies, estimated that the port wouldn't be profitable. And when they went to their neighboring Indian companies for funding and construction, even they said the same thing. It was an economic dud then, and it's an economic dud now. But then the president announced that the project had been greenlighted, with the help of none other than China. The Chinese government's Export-Import Bank gave them a loan of $307 million. On the surface, this looked very generous. We're helping a developing country build infrastructure when other selfish countries wouldn't help. But it came with some clever terms. The port would have to be built by the CCP's preferred company, China Harbor, so that it looks like money is going to this developing country, but then it just gets funneled back right into the Chinese economy. So this.
Now, really quick, to explain what he's saying basically they gave a loan to Sri Lanka for $307 million. But a part of that agreement was that the companies that are being used to build the port have to come from China. They have to be Chinese-based companies. So in essence, a lot of that money that was sent out as a loan really went back to China. It really didn't help the actual people. All right, and the reason I want to stop there is because, again, this highlights a invention or a policy that was used before China. All right, China didn't start this. All right, this is something that China adopted based on the harlot. All right, so we go back to 2nd Esdras 15 and 48. It says, "Thou hast followed her that is hated in all her works and inventions. Therefore, saith Yahweh Shema Shai, I will send plagues upon thee." All right, that's why the Lord is going to have a vendetta against Moab as well. All right, because they have made themselves like unto Babylon. All right, they are the glory of her persons. When you look at their infrastructure, all right, it looks Western. All right, there are skyscrapers. All right, their people use the same, they wear the same attire or similar attire from the West. All right, this is why North Korea, for example, had to outlaw, all right, Western culture. And you can look that up in more detail. But basically, Western culture is being made illegal in certain instances in North Korea as they try to wean themselves off of that juice. All right. Matter of fact, let's get this. All right. This is Revelation chapter 14 and 8. And it reads, "And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication." And that's that doctrine that she pushes. All right. That's the doctrine. All right. That's the customs. All right. And most of these nations have followed behind her in her works. All right. But right now we want to deal particularly with Asia. All right. Which is China. All right. And for those who don't know, and you can research it as well. China has become a major player on the world stage due to their economic growth. All right, the ability to have a lot of things made in China for cheap has put them in a place where they've been able to fund a better military and to give out the loans that are mentioned in this video. All right. And now that they've become a major player, they've sided and made deals with Russia, all right, who is also in alliance with Iran, which is Persia. All right. And all of these things are going to come together according to prophecy. But dealing specifically with China and their policy of debt trap, for lack of a better term, they've gotten this policy from America, from Babylon. And now they've, in a sense, made improvements. All right. And later on in the video, they'll show that. All right. So let me just get a little bit more of this clip and then we'll grab some more scriptures.
Really no risk to the Chinese government and only upside. And another requirement was that Sri Lanka would be required to let the Chinese government know exactly who is coming in and out of the port. So they also get valuable intel on top of everything. The port opened in 2012 and the forecasts were right. No one was interested in this new port. With only 34 ships docking there in 2012 compared to nearly 4,000 ships at Sri Lanka's other port, Colombo. And its finances were in the hole. So the president went back to China for another loan, this time for $757 million. China agreed, but with the condition that the first loan of $307 million would go from a 1 to 2% interest rate to a 6.3% interest rate. A very steep hike. Then a new Sri Lankan president was elected and took over a country shackled in debt. Debt had increased 3 times to $44.8 billion, and by the end of 2015, they had a $4.7 billion payment due, money that they didn't have. So what did they do? They took out another loan from China, this time for $1 billion to help pay off that upcoming debt payment. The equivalent of you taking out a loan to help pay off your monthly credit card statements.
And really quick, you can see this played out, all right, in everyday life in the West. All right, a lot of people's lives are funded by credit. All right, now what China is doing is basically adopting the same policy toward nations. All right, and before they did it, America did it. All right, and this is how you have certain corporations that have planted themselves in certain third world countries using this same method. All right, the IMF has given out loans. All right, and when these nations can't pay these loans back, all right, these corporations that worked inside of Babylon, which is America, utilized the fact that these third world countries were in debt to extract resources, to get better deals, to get land. All right, basically, it's a debt trap, similar to what the average American in Babylon the Great goes through. All right, your life is, for the most part, funded through debt. All right, and most Americans have debt. And this is just a smaller example of how everyone here has been laden with thick clay. All right, and as the judge is, so is the people. All right, so China, while they're guilty of applying a wicked policy, all right, for dominion, all right, to try and get power, they've learned it from somewhere. All right, real quick, this is Habakkuk chapter 2. And let's start at verse 4. And it reads, "Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desires hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people." Now this is going into Esau, Edom. All right, now verse 6 says this, "Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay." All right, now it describes Esau as lading himself with thick clay. All right, and when you go into that Hebrew word, it's a bathyat, all right, which is debt. All right, so this policy, which is first used by Esau, Edom, all right, has been adopted by other countries, like-minded countries. All right, real quick, this is Jeremiah chapter 51 and verse 7. "Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine. Therefore, the nations are mad." All right, and this is why you have nations like China following the same blueprint. And they're doing it to Africa. All right, and it shows you how everyone is following after the ruler of the city, which is Esau Edom. All right, Babylon the Great, which is America, which is the tip of the spear of Esau's rulership. You still have people saying that Esau is the so-called Arabs, but you don't see nations like Asia, like China, adopting the culture of the Arabs. You don't see that happening, which shows you that they're not in rulership. The countries are not following their philosophy. All right, and this small example among many shows you who's actually in rulership. Now, I want to skip up to the 9-minute mark. But Lord willing, you can see the title, and if you want to go back, you can watch the entire video. It does bring out a lot of good information, but it all speaks to the point of Asia or China making themselves like unto Babylon, all right, in policy, in appearance, all right, and China goes back to the land of Moab, or I should say the Moabites, all right. So the Chinese, the people itself, all right, their biblical nationality is Moab.
China's coming in and offering better deals. I think the Chinese learned from the mistakes that Russia's economic hitmen and the United States' economic hitmen made. I don't think they're making those mistakes. They're going to make their own set of mistakes, but they're not making those. And so actually President Xi has gone on record as promising, and I've got in front of me right now the 4 points that he's recently made as a promise to any country where they go in. And you're quite correct that they go in and they bring in their own workforces, they bring in their own engineering companies, and they use resources as collateral, just as we did. But he's also promised that 1, we won't interfere in other countries' internal affairs. 2, we won't impose our will on other countries in any way. 3, we won't attach political agendas to assistance programs. And 4, we won't seek selfish political gains through our investment and financial policies.
So you see what's happening, right? They've taken the same initial method of Esau Edom, and they've made changes so that their deal looks better than the American deal, the Western deal of these loans that are being pushed towards these third world countries. All right, and it shows you that they're adopting the same wicked inventions. All right, now I want to go to this as well. Let's go to Ecclesiasticus. And this is why Moab is going to fall as well. All right, Moab is not special. They believe that they're going to have rulership. All right, but they're going to fall as well. All right, because they have the same mindset of Esau Edom. All right, Ecclesiasticus 10:1 reads, "A wise judge will instruct his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered. As the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers. And what manner of man the ruler of the city is, such are all they that dwell therein. An unwise king destroyeth his people, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited." And what you have here, right, is the ruler of the city, all right, the judge of the people, all right, is Esau Edom, all right, which is the so-called white man, beginning with their elites. And they have practiced a certain way of attaining power through the sword and through debt, like John Adams said. All right, that quote John Adams used in the beginning of this video goes into their philosophy. All right, let me see if I can find it to freeze frame it. All right. Well, I can't see it right now, but you know what? Maybe I can pull it up here. But yeah, they have the same policy. They've adopted the same policy as the West. All right, even though they look different, obviously. All right, they are of another nation of people, yet they've adopted the ways of the ruler of the city. All right. Now let me get this quote. Yep. Beautiful. All right. So John Adams said there are 2 ways to conquer and enslave a country. One is by the sword and the other is by debt. And all right, China is using the debt practice or the debt policy. All right. And again, this all goes back to the ruler of the city. All right. So when we go back to Ecclesiasticus 10:2, it says, "As the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers. And what manner of man the ruler of the city is, Such are all they that dwell therein. And this is the pride of Moab, who believes that they'll take the method of Esau Edom, alter it slightly, and then have rulership over the world using the customs and the policies of Babylon. This is why the Lord called them a wretch, all right, in 2nd Esdras, the 15th chapter, because they're not doing anything new. They're applying the same concept that Babylon did, all right, to achieve its power. All right, when you go into Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter, it said that he heaped unto himself all nations. And Esau did that through the sword and through debt. All right, when you see what's going on with Russia and the West's ability to place sanctions and lock out a nation out of the global monetary system, all right, even though it's all orchestrated, it shows you an example of the kind of control the West has over the earth. And these policies are these policies are the same policies that Asia or China, which is the Moabites, they're trying to adopt the same thing. This is why the scriptures say that Babylon is a golden cup, and it have made all the nations drunk, all right, and mad. All right, real quick again, Jeremiah 51:7, Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. All right. And this is why the Lord has a vendetta, not only against the so-called white man, but against his allies. All right. Because even though Moab is on the other side of Babylon the Great in the line in the sand, all right, they are all ultimately following the ways of Esau Edom. They may be enemies with certain sects of Esau. All right. And what I mean by that is Moab and Gog, which is Russia, are in alliance. And Gog is the Edomites. They're Russian. They call themselves Russian, but they're really Edomites. Ultimately, everybody is following the policy and the ways of Esau Edom. And they're all trying to use the same method to attain power. Now, we understand that behind all of this, there's an elite agenda that is being exercised. But this is another example of how the scriptures reign supreme in truth, because it still shows you how Asia has made itself like unto Babylon, not just in appearance, but in policy. All right. Now, I want to grab an article, and then I'll jump back to 2nd Esdras, the 15th chapter. But I have an article, and it's actually a blog from this same author, John Perkins, that you see here in this clip. All right, and he's the author of The Economic Hitman. And this is his blog, johnperkins.org. And I just want to grab a paragraph from this from this blog site. All right, it says this. History tells us that China has expanded its influence through trade more than by military intervention. Since long before Europeans colonized the Americas, with the unfortunate exception of regions China claims as part of its territory, including Tibet and Taiwan, China appears to be taking that policy to global levels with the new Silk Road. As President Putin's economic advisor Sergei Glaziev told me, it appears that China has learned from the mistakes and successes of Russians and Americans. Armies generate resentment. Economic hitmen are better than generals as agents of expansion. All right, and this shows you, all right, from the mouth of one of the economic hitmen, that China's policy, all right, through sending out loans, basically being the global Sally Mae, they've been able to extend their kingdom, all right, and extend their influence. And this is why the scriptures show you that there's going to be a line in the sand. All right. You're going to have Gog, all right, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal and its allies. And let's get that. And you're going to have the West on the other side of the line. All right. And Moab is clearly on the side of Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. All right. Real quick. This is Ezekiel 38. And I'll start at 1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord of power, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth with and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. All right, now again, Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, is Russia. All right, for those who don't know. All right, and the Lord turning and putting hooks into thy jaws is a representation of the Lord bringing Russia back into the Cold War spirit to be an adversary unto the West. All right, verse 5 reads, Persia, Ethiopia, Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. And Persia is modern day Iran. All right, Ethiopia would represent that Cushite nation. All right, that's in that land. And Libya would represent Put, all right, those sons of Ham, all right, the so-called Africans, Libya being the North Africans, and Ethiopia being Cush, all right, all with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. And that's a representation of Turkey. But I want to bring out the point in verse 7. It says, Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. All right, so Russia's going to not only be a guard to these nations here, but they're also going to be a guard unto Moab. All right, and this is why Moab's been able to exercise this debt trap policy, all right, because of the allegiances they've made between themselves and Russia, all right, Iran, the BRICS nations, if you will. All right, but I wanted to take some time to show this, all right, because again, this highlights that even outside of appearance, all right, Asia has decked itself to be like the harlot, all right, the whore that sitteth upon many waters, which is Babylon, all right. Now let's go back to 2 Esdras 15, and I'll close out with it. And verse 46 reads, And thou, Asia, that art partaker of the hope of Babylon, and art the glory of her person, woe be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughters in whoredom, that they might please and glory in thy lovers, which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee. Thou hast followed her that is hated in all her works and inventions. Therefore saith the Lord, Yahweh Shai, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. And the glory of thy power shall be dried up as a flower. The heat shall arise that is sent over thee. So even though Babylon has conquered the world through the sword and through debt and through this economic hold, as prophesied, that the earth would be given into the hand of the wicked. You have nations like Moab, all right, or the Chinese, who think that they will adopt the same method and have rulership after Esau's dominion, particularly the Edomites in the west. All right, and that's why the Lord talks about the pride of Moab. And you know what? Let me grab that. All right. So real quick, this is Jeremiah 48 and 29. And it reads, We have heard the pride of Moab. He is exceeding proud, his loftiness and his arrogancy and his pride, and the haughtiness of his heart. I know his wrath, saith the Lord, but it shall not be so. His lies shall not so affect it. So you have Moab, who believes that they're going to use the same blueprint and ride off into the sunset in a position of power. But as the scriptures say, his lies shall not so affect it, and it shall not be so. He won't accomplish his goal, because his goal is similar to the daughter of Babylon. All right, it's similar to the glory of Babylon, the same desire for dominion and wickedness. All right, because he's exercising the same policy, which is to send out loans that these nations can't pay. And when they can't pay it back, you basically have that country indebted to you. All right, and that goes back to that famous quote from John Adams. All right. There are two ways to conquer and enslave a country. One is by the sword and the other is by debt. All right, so this shows you one of many examples of how Moab, all right, Asia has decked herself and followed herself in the ways of Babylon in all her whoredoms and inventions. All right, but as the scriptures say, it shall not be so. All right, so Lord willing, this was edifying. With that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasher Allah, and a sincere salutation to all you Akim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwath, who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity. Shalom.